I need to tell someone what I did, and you're going to think I'm terrible, but there's something about being the partner who has everything together that nobody understands. Everyone's looking at my husband Mark like he's this sad, neglected victim now, but the truth is I'm the one who ruined everything, and here's what really happened. If I don't tell this story, you'll never understand why I'm sitting here in our bedroom every night pretending to read while he watches TV downstairs like we're strangers who happen to share a mortgage. But once you know what I know, you'll see why I had no choice but to protect myself the way I did. I'm going to tell you everything, including the moment I laughed in his face when he tried to tell me how he felt, and the part that makes me look worst. I'm saving that for the end because you need to understand what it's like to be the strong one first. Mark and I have been together for 11 years, married for 8. When we met, I was the one everyone counted on. At work, I was the project manager who never missed deadlines. In my friend group, I planned everything. In my family, I was the responsible one who remembered birthdays and organized holidays. Mark was different from the guys I'd dated before. He was quiet, steady, not demanding. He seemed grateful for the way I took charge of things. That's what attracted me to him, honestly. With other boyfriends, there was always this competition about who was smarter, who made more money, who had better ideas. Mark just let me lead. When I suggested restaurants, he was happy to go along. When I wanted to move to a bigger apartment, he agreed. When I planned our wedding mostly by myself because he said he didn't have strong opinions about centerpieces and color schemes, I thought I'd found the perfect partner. I didn't realize I was building a dynamic that would eventually suffocate us both. The first few years of marriage were good, or at least I thought they were good. I handled our finances because I was better with money. I made most of our social plans because I was more outgoing. I dealt with contractors and service people because I was more assertive. Mark worked his 9 to 5 as an accountant, came home, and seemed content to let me run the show. Looking back, there were signs. Small things that didn't register as problems at the time. Like when we'd go to dinner parties and I'd tell stories about our life, Mark would just smile and nod. I thought he was being supportive. I didn't realize he'd stopped trying to contribute, because I always talked over him or corrected details he got wrong. Or when I'd suggest weekend activities and he'd say, "Whatever you want." I thought he was being easygoing. I didn't realize he'd given up having preferences because I'd shot down so many of his ideas over the years that he'd internalized the message that his interests weren't as worthwhile as mine. The thing is, I wasn't trying to be controlling. I genuinely thought I was being helpful. When Mark would suggest we try some new hobby together and I'd point out all the logistical problems or why we didn't have time, I thought I was being practical. When he'd plan a date night and I'd reschedule it because something came up at work, I thought I was being responsible about my career. I thought I was the one holding our life together. The first time Mark said something about feeling unappreciated, we'd been married for 5 years. We were at home on a Sunday, and I was going through our budget because I'd found some charges on our credit card that seemed wasteful. Mark had bought some expensive art supplies. He mentioned a few months earlier that he wanted to get back into painting, something he'd loved in college but hadn't done in years. "We're trying to save for a house," I said, showing him the statement. "This is $200 we could have put toward our down payment." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I just wanted to do something for myself, something creative." "I get that, but we talked about our financial goals. This wasn't in the budget." "You made the budget," he said. "I don't remember talking about it. You just sent me a spreadsheet." That annoyed me. "I sent you a spreadsheet and asked for your input. You said it looked fine." "Because you already had it all figured out. You always do." There was something in his voice that made me look up from my laptop. He had this expression I'd never seen before. Not angry exactly, tired. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. "Nothing, forget it." "No, clearly you have something to say." He hesitated, then said, "Sometimes I feel like nothing I do matters to you, like you've got our whole life planned out and I'm just along for the ride." I should have listened. I should have put down the laptop and really heard what he was trying to tell me, but instead I got defensive. "Are you seriously trying to make me feel bad for being responsible? Someone has to think about our future, Mark. Someone has to make sure we're not just floating through life hoping things work out. I'm not saying don't plan, I'm saying maybe include me in the planning. Maybe ask what I want sometimes instead of just telling me what we're doing." "I always ask what you want. You're the one who never has an opinion. Because you make it clear my opinions aren't as good as yours." That stung because there was truth in it, but I wasn't ready to admit that. "That's not fair. I can't help it if I've thought things through more thoroughly than you have." He looked at me for a long moment, then just nodded. "You're right, forget I said anything." And that was it. We moved on. I thought I'd won the argument, but really I just taught him there was no point in trying to communicate with me. Things continued the same way for another year. I kept making decisions, Mark kept going along with them, and I kept telling myself we had a good marriage because we never really fought. Then Mark's mom got sick. Cancer, aggressive, the kind where the prognosis isn't good. Mark was devastated. He's an only child and his dad had passed away when Mark was in college, so his mom was everything to him. I tried to be supportive. I went to doctor's appointments with him, helped research treatment options, brought meals to his mom's house. But I also had a huge project at work, the kind that could make or break my career trajectory at my company. I was up for a promotion to senior director, and I was competing against 2 other candidates. The thing about being the competent one is that people expect you to handle everything perfectly all the time. They don't want to hear that you're overwhelmed or scared or barely holding it together. They just want you to deliver results. So I tried to be there for Mark while also working 12-hour days and managing the stress of the promotion competition. Looking back, I know I wasn't present enough. I know he needed more from me than I was giving. But at the time, I felt like I was doing my best to keep all the plates spinning. Mark started going to therapy. His mom's oncologist had recommended it to help him process what he was going through. He asked if I'd come to a few sessions with him for couples counseling, just to help us navigate this difficult time together. I said I was too busy with work, that we'd do it after my project was done and the promotion was decided. I remember the look on his face when I said that, like something inside him just folded up and closed off. Okay, he said, sure, after your project. His mom died 3 months later, 2 weeks before I got the promotion. I took time off work for the funeral, handled all the logistics of the memorial service, dealt with the relatives who showed up and needed accommodating. I was good at that kind of thing, organizing, managing, keeping everything running smoothly. What I didn't do was hold Mark while he cried. I didn't ask him how he was really feeling. I didn't create space for his grief because I was too busy managing the logistics of it. A month after the funeral, after things had settled down and I'd started my new role at work, Mark tried again. We were in bed, both reading. He put down his book and turned to me. I've been thinking, he said, maybe we should do that couples counseling now. I think it would be good for us. I didn't even look up from my phone where I was responding to work emails. Things are fine now, though. The stressful period is over. I don't think things are fine. That got my attention. I put down my phone. What do you mean? I feel like we're roommates, not partners. I feel like you don't actually need me for anything except to split the rent and show up at events so you don't have to go alone. That's ridiculous. Of course I need you. For what? The question caught me off guard. I scrambled for an answer. For companionship, for partnership, because I love you. Do you, though? Now I was getting angry. How can you even ask me that? I just spent 3 months helping you take care of your mom, managing everything so you didn't have to. Managing, exactly. That's all you ever do. You manage me like I'm one of your work projects. Someone has to be the adult in this relationship, Mark. As soon as the words left my mouth, I knew I'd crossed a line. His face went completely still. Right, he said quietly. Because I'm what? A child? That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. It's what you've always thought. You're smarter than me, more capable than me, that I should just be grateful you're willing to manage my incompetent ass. You're putting words in my mouth. Am I? Because I've spent 6 years watching you dismiss everything I say, every idea I have, every feeling I try to express. I just lost my mom and you couldn't even take one evening off from work emails to ask me how I'm coping. Do you know how that feels? I felt my defenses going up like walls. I'm sorry I have a demanding career. I'm sorry I can't just fall apart every time something hard happens. I'm not asking you to fall apart, I'm asking you to see me, to value me, to treat me like an equal instead of a burden you have to manage. If you feel like such a burden, maybe you should speak up more. Maybe you should have stronger opinions or take initiative instead of just passively going along with everything and then resenting me for making decisions. He stared at me. I tried to speak up. For years I tried. And every single time you had a reason why I was wrong or impractical or not thinking things through. Do you know what that does to a person? To be told over and over that your judgment is faulty, that your ideas aren't good enough? I never said that. You didn't have to say it. You showed it. Every time you rolled your eyes at my suggestions. Every time you fixed plans I'd made because they weren't up to your standards. Every time you told a story about our life and didn't even notice you were editing me out of it. This was the moment when I should have listened, really listened, and understood what he was telling me. The moment when I could have saved everything. Instead I laughed, not a big laugh, just a short, sharp sound of disbelief, but it was enough. You feel unappreciated, I said, and I could hear the condescension in my own voice but couldn't seem to stop it. Mark, I appreciate you. But you have to give me something to appreciate. You can't just coast through life being agreeable and then get upset when someone else has to make all the decisions. He looked at me like he'd never seen me before. Then he got up, took his pillow, and went asleep in the guest room. That was 18 months ago. The thing I didn't realize, the thing I was too stubborn and self-righteous to see, was that when someone tells you they're going to stop trying, you should believe them. Mark didn't yell or make threats or demand changes. He just quietly withdrew from our marriage in every way that mattered. It happened so gradually that I didn't notice at first. He still came home at the same time, still slept in our bed after that first night, still showed up to the social obligations we'd committed to. but he stopped engaging with me beyond the bare minimum. When I'd talk about my day, he'd nod and say, "That's interesting," or "Sounds tough," without really responding. When I'd suggest weekend plans, he'd say, "Whatever you want." When I'd ask his opinion on anything, he'd shrug and say, "You decide." At first, I told myself things would blow over. We'd had a fight and he was being sulky, and eventually he'd get over it. I even felt a little vindicated. See, he was being passive-aggressive instead of communicating, which just proved my point about his conflict avoidance. I convinced myself I was the rational one, waiting patiently for him to stop pouting. But weeks turned into months and things didn't get better, they got quieter. Mark stopped trying to talk to me about anything substantive. He stopped sharing what he was thinking or feeling. He became exactly what I'd accused him of being, a passive presence in our home who went along with everything without complaint. And it was awful. You'd think getting exactly what I wanted, a partner who didn't push back, who let me run everything my way, would feel like a victory. Instead, it felt like living with a ghost. I tried to talk to him about it once, about 3 months after our fight. "You've been distant lately," I said. "Have I?" He didn't even look up from his phone. "Yes, we barely talk anymore. We're talking right now. You know what I mean, real conversations about things that matter." He finally looked at me. His expression was completely neutral. "What would you like to talk about?" "I don't know us, how you're doing, anything." "I'm fine, we're fine." "Was there something specific you needed?" The way he said needed, like I was a manager checking in on a direct report, made my skin crawl. "I just miss feeling connected to you," I said, and I meant it. I did miss it, even though I hadn't realized what we'd had until it was gone. "Okay," he said, and went back to his phone. That's when I started to get scared. Not scared enough to change anything significant, but scared enough to feel a constant low-grade anxiety about the state of my marriage. I threw myself into work even harder, telling myself that at least there I was valued and appreciated. I got promoted again. I took on a major new account. I traveled more for business. Mark never complained. He never asked me to stay home or spend more time together. He just said, "Have a good trip and glad you're back," and existed in our home like a polite stranger. We stopped having sex, not because we fought about it or because either of us explicitly refused. We just stopped. I'd be too tired from work, or he'd stay up later than me, or I'd wake up before him. The opportunities for intimacy disappeared without either of us trying to create them. Our friends started noticing something was off. We'd go to dinner parties and Mark would be friendly but distant, nursing one beer all night while I drank wine and got louder and more animated, trying to fill the silence he left. People would ask me afterward if everything was okay, and I'd wave them off and say we were just busy with work. Then came the incident that made me realize how bad things had got. We were at my company's holiday party. These things are important for my career, and I always expect Mark to show up and be charming and make a good impression. He'd always been good at that, even if he was quiet. People liked him. This year he showed up like I asked. He wore the suit I'd laid out for him. He smiled and shook hands and made small talk. Everything looked fine from the outside, but my boss Amanda pulled me aside halfway through the night. "Is Mark okay?" she asked. "Why do you ask?" "I was just talking to him and I asked how he was doing. He said fine, so I asked what he'd been up to lately and he said the usual. I asked if he had any plans for the holidays and he said whatever Rachel decides." She gave me a concerned look. He seemed, I don't know, not present. Like he was somewhere else entirely. I felt a flash of embarrassment, then anger. "He's just tired, we've both been working a lot." "If you say so, I just wanted to make sure everything was all right. You two always seemed so solid." After the party in the car, I snapped at him. "Could you have been any more checked out tonight? You made us look like we're having marital problems." He didn't even glance over from the driver's seat. "Aren't we?" "What? Having marital problems? Isn't that what this is?" "We're fine, we just need to reconnect." "Okay, can you stop saying okay like that, like you don't care about anything?" "What would you like me to say? Something real, something that shows you're still in this marriage." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said very calmly, "I told you I felt unappreciated. I told you I felt invisible. You laughed at me. So I stopped expecting anything from you, and now you're upset because you can feel the difference. But I don't know what you want from me, Rachel, I really don't. I want my husband back." "Which version? The one who tried to share his feelings and got shut down? The one who made suggestions you ignored? The one who needed support when his mom was dying and didn't get it?" I didn't have an answer to that. We drove the rest of the way home in silence. That night, lying awake in bed while Mark slept beside me, I finally admitted to myself that our marriage was in serious trouble. But even then, I couldn't quite accept my role in creating the problem. I kept circling back to the idea that Mark was being unfair, that he was punishing me for one argument, that he was choosing to be distant instead of working on things with me. I never quite connected the dots that I'd created this situation by spending years dismissing him, and that his withdrawal wasn't punishment, it was self-preservation. The thing that finally broke through my denial happened a few weeks later. I came home early from work one day because a meeting got canceled. I expected to find the house empty since Mark usually worked until 6, but his car was in the driveway. I found him in the room that we'd always called the office, but which had become mostly my space for working from home. He was painting. He'd set up an easel by the window and was working on a canvas, completely absorbed. He didn't even notice me at first. The painting was beautiful, an abstract landscape in blues and grays that somehow conveyed a feeling of loneliness that made my chest ache. I didn't know you were painting again, I said. He startled, then turned. For just a second I saw something in his face, fear, guilt, before it smoothed into that neutral expression he always wore around me now. I took a half day, he said. The painting is beautiful. Thanks. How long have you been doing this? A few months. A few months. Been painting for months and never mentioned it. Why didn't you tell me? He started cleaning his brushes. You never asked what I was doing with my time. It was true. I'd been so wrapped up in my own work, my own stress, my own narrative about our marriage that I hadn't even asked my husband what he was doing with his days. Can I see the others? I asked. The other paintings? He hesitated, then opened the closet. There were at least 20 canvases stacked there. He pulled a few out for me. They were all stunning, and they were all profoundly sad. Empty rooms, solitary figures, dark colors and negative space that spoke of isolation. Mark, I said, and my voice cracked. Are you okay? I'm fine. These don't look like you're fine, they look like you're depressed. They're just paintings. They're clearly more than that. He put them back in the closet. Was there something you needed? I should get cleaned up for dinner. I don't care about dinner, I care about you. Talk to me, please. He turned to look at me, and for the first time in months I saw something real in his expression. Not anger, not love, just exhaustion. I don't know how to talk to you anymore, Rachel. Every time I try to tell you how I feel, you either dismiss it or turn it around to be about how hard you have it or make it into an argument you need to win. So I stopped trying. And now you're upset that I stopped trying, but you're still not actually listening to me. You're just upset that my silence is inconvenient for you. That's not fair. Isn't it? Right now you're upset about the paintings, but are you upset because I'm hurting or because you didn't know I was hurting? Are you concerned about me or concerned about what it says about you that you didn't notice? The question hit me like a slap because I didn't know the answer, or I did know the answer and it made me look terrible. I'm concerned about both, I said finally. I hate that you're hurting. And I hate that I didn't see it. Okay, he said, and started putting away his art supplies. I wanted to push, to demand he engage with me, to force him to have the conversation I suddenly desperately wanted to have. But something in his shoulders, in the careful way he was moving, stopped me. For the first time I realized that I couldn't manage or fix or organize my way out of this. This wasn't a project with action items and deliverables. This was a person who had been slowly disappearing from our marriage because I'd made him feel like there was no room for him in it. I left him alone that day. I went downstairs and ordered takeout and pretended to work on my laptop while having a small, quiet panic attack about the state of my life. That night I barely slept. I kept thinking about those paintings, about the months Mark had spent creating this entire artistic practice without ever mentioning it to me. What else didn't I know about him? What else had I missed while I was busy congratulating myself on running our life so efficiently? The next morning I tried a different approach. I was thinking, I said over coffee, maybe we should plan a vacation, just the two of us, get away somewhere and reconnect. If you want to take a vacation, that's fine, he said. I want us to take a vacation together. Okay, where were you thinking? I don't know, where would you like to go? He looked at me with that neutral expression. Wherever you want is fine. Mark, please, I'm trying here. Trying what exactly? To include you, to ask your opinion. One vacation doesn't fix years of not caring what I think. There it was, the truth stated plainly. So what do? I asked, and I heard the desperation in my voice. How do I fix this? I don't know if you can, he said quietly. I don't know if I have anything left to give you. He left for work, and I sat at the kitchen table crying for the first time in years. I called in sick that day. I couldn't face going to the office and pretending everything was fine when my marriage was falling apart. I did something I never do. I called my sister. Emma and I aren't that close. Partly because we're very different people. She's more creative and emotional while I'm more practical and analytical, and partly because I've always been a little judgmental about her life choices. She's a freelance graphic designer who prioritizes experiences over security, who's been engaged twice but never married, who I've always privately thought was kind of a mess. Rachel, she said when she picked up, surprised. Is everything okay? Not really, I said, and started crying again. To her credit, Emma didn't say I told you so, even though she probably wanted to. Over the years, during the rare times we talked about my marriage, she made little comments about how I seemed to steamroll Mark, how she worried I didn't really see him as an equal partner. I'd always brushed her off. I told her everything. The fights, Mark's withdrawal, the paintings, all of it. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Do you love him? She asked. Of course I do. No, really. Do you actually love Mark for who he is, or do you love having a partner who doesn't challenge you? I wanted to be offended, but the question stopped me. I don't know, I finally said. I think I loved who we were together, or who I thought we were. Who did you think you were? A team, a partnership. I thought I was the one who handled things, and he was the one who supported me, and that worked for both of us. But he tried to tell you it wasn't working for him, and you laughed at him. I know, God, I know I was such an asshole. So what are you going to do about it? I don't know. He won't talk to me, he's completely shut down. Emma sighed. Can you blame him? You spent years training him not to share with you. You can't expect him to just open back up because you're suddenly ready to listen. So what do I do? Maybe start by figuring out what you actually want. Do you want to fix your marriage because you love Mark and want him to be happy? Or do you want to fix it because it's uncomfortable for you that it's broken? After we hung up, I sat with that question for a long time. The honest answer, the one I didn't want to admit, was that I mostly wanted to fix things because Mark's withdrawal made me feel bad. It made me feel like a failure. It made me feel out of control. I wasn't sure I knew how to love someone without trying to manage them. Over the next few weeks, I tried to change. I asked Mark questions about his day and actually listened to the answers. I stopped making all our social plans and asked what he wanted to do on weekends. I backed off on criticizing or fixing things he did. But it was too little, too late. Mark had spent so long protecting himself from me that he didn't trust this new version of me. And honestly, I didn't fully trust it either. Every time I bit back a criticism or stopped myself from taking over a decision, it felt performative. Like I was acting the role of a supportive wife rather than actually being one. Mark could tell. He'd respond politely to my questions but without any real openness. He'd make suggestions about weekend plans that were so generic they might as well have been whatever you want. He was going through the motions of engaging with me while keeping himself completely protected. We were two people pretending to be married. The real breaking point came about 6 months ago. My company had a major conference in San Francisco and everyone was expected to attend. It was a 5-day event and partners were invited to a fancy dinner on the third night. I asked Mark if he'd come with me for that part of the trip. If you need me to, he said. I'd like you to, but only if you want to come. He looked at me for a long moment and I could see him debating whether to say what he was actually thinking. Do you really care if I want to come? He asked finally. Or do you just need someone to stand next to you at the dinner so it doesn't look like your marriage is falling apart? The accuracy of the question, the way it pinpointed exactly the insecure, selfish reason I wanted him there, made me defensive. Why do you always assume the worst about my motives? Because you've given me 8 years of evidence that you care more about appearances than reality. That's not true, isn't it? When have you ever chosen me over your image? When have you ever prioritized what I need over what looks good? I couldn't answer. Every example I tried to think of fell apart under scrutiny. You want me at the dinner because you don't want people asking questions about where your husband is, he continued. You want me to show up and smile and play the role of supportive spouse so you look good in front of your colleagues, just like you've always wanted me to show up and smile and play whatever role made you look good. So you're not coming. My voice came out sharper than I intended. I'll come. I'll wear the right thing and say the right things and make you look good. That's what I'm for, right? He walked away before I could respond. At the conference, Mark did exactly what he said he'd do. He showed up to the dinner in a suit, made polite conversation with my colleagues, played the role of the perfect husband. And I hated every second of it. I hated it because I could see what everyone else couldn't, that he wasn't there at all, not really. He was performing, the same way I'd been performing as the concerned wife these past months. We were both pretending and the pretense was killing us. On the last night of the conference, after the final session, I went back to my hotel room and found Mark packing his bag. What are you doing? I asked. Our flight isn't until tomorrow afternoon. I changed mine, I'm flying out in a few hours. Why? He zipped his bag and turned to face me. Because I can't do this anymore, Rachel. I can't keep pretending we have a marriage when we both know it's been over for a while now. My heart started racing. What are you saying? I'm saying I think we should separate, officially, not just living like roommates but actually living separately. Mark, no, we can fix this. I know I've been difficult, but I'm trying. You're trying to manage the situation. That's what you always do. But you can't manage your way into intimacy. You can't organize your way into connection. So you're just giving up. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I gave up 18 months ago when you laughed at me for saying I felt unappreciated. I gave up when you couldn't take one evening away from work emails while my mom was dying. I gave up when you made it clear over and over that my thoughts and feelings and needs were just inconveniences you had to work around. I've been gone for a while, Rachel. You're just noticing now because it's affecting you. I love you, I said, and I meant it. Or I meant something. I wasn't even sure anymore what love was supposed to feel like when it wasn't wrapped up in control and management and the need to have everything look right. Maybe you do, he said, but you don't know how to love me in a way I can actually feel, and I don't have the energy to keep trying to teach you. He left that night. When I got home 2 days later, half his stuff was gone from our house. He'd moved into a furnished apartment across town. He texted me the address and said we should probably talk to a lawyer. That was 6 months ago. We're separated but not divorced yet. We're in this weird limbo where we're still legally married but living completely separate lives. We communicate through text about logistics, bills, insurance, eventually what to do with the house. Always polite, always distant. Here's the part that makes me look worst, the part I said I'd tell you. I'm still not sure I learned anything. I've been going to therapy, which my therapist says is progress. But even in therapy, I find myself trying to manage the process. Trying to be the best therapy patient, the one who has the most insights, who makes the most progress. Trying to fix myself like I'm a project with a deadline. My therapist keeps asking me what I want. Not what I think I should want, not what would look good, but what I actually want. And I still don't have a good answer. I miss Mark. I miss having someone in the house. I miss the image of our life together, the couple we looked like from the outside. I miss telling people my husband instead of having to explain that we're separated. But do I miss Mark specifically? Do I miss who he actually is as a person, separate from what he provided for me? I don't know. I look at couples around me and try to figure out what they have that we didn't. I see my friends making decisions together, compromising, sometimes arguing, but always coming back to each other. I see relationships where both people seem to matter equally. And I realize I never learned how to do that. I learned how to be independent. I learned how to be competent. I learned how to handle everything myself and feel superior about it. I never learned how to be a partner. My sister asked me last week if I thought Mark and I would get back together. I don't know, I said. I think he's happier without me. Are you happier without him? It was a good question. Am I happier? I'm certainly more in control. I don't have to consider anyone else's needs or preferences. I can make all my own decisions without input or pushback. I live exactly the way I always wanted to live, completely on my own terms. And I've never been more miserable. Because here's what I've realized: being right doesn't matter if you're alone. Being competent doesn't matter if you've used your competence as a weapon to make someone else feel small. Being in control doesn't matter if you've controlled yourself right out of intimacy. I see Mark sometimes around town. He looks different, lighter somehow, like he's been carrying something heavy for years and finally put it down. The last time I saw him, he was at a coffee shop with a sketchbook drawing. He looked peaceful, present in his own life in a way I never saw when we were together. I wanted to go over and talk to him, to tell him I finally understood what he'd been trying to tell me all those years, that I was sorry, that I'd give anything to go back and listen the first time he said he felt invisible. But I didn't. Because the truth is, even my apology would probably be more about making myself feel better than about actually honoring his experience. So I let him be. I went home to my empty house and my perfectly organized life and my career that's going great and my complete inability to connect with anyone in a meaningful way. Sometimes I wonder if he'll meet someone else. Someone who actually sees him, who values his gentleness instead of dismissing it as weakness, who asks his opinion and means it. I think about that person getting the best parts of Mark, the parts I never appreciated. His thoughtfulness, his creativity, his capacity for depth that I never bothered to explore because I was too busy running the show. And I realize that's what I deserve, to watch someone else value what I threw away. My therapist thinks I'm being too hard on myself. She says recognizing the problem is the first step, that change takes time, that I'm doing the work. But I'm not sure she's right. Because even now, even after everything, my first instinct is still to manage and control. When she asks me how I feel, I want to give her the right answer. When she suggests I sit with uncomfortable emotions, I want to problem solve my way out of them. I don't know if I'm capable of the kind of openness and vulnerability that real partnership requires. I don't know if I can unlearn 38 years of believing that being strong means doing everything yourself and never needing anyone. What I do know is this: Mark told me he felt unappreciated, and I laughed. He quit trying, and now I'm invisible, not to him but to myself. I look in the mirror and see someone competent and successful and completely hollow. I got everything I thought I wanted, a career I'm proud of, a life that looks impressive from the outside, total autonomy and control, and I've never felt more lost. People ask me sometimes if I regret how things turned out, if I wish I'd done things differently. The answer is yes and no. Yes, I regret hurting Mark. I regret the specific moments when I was cruel or dismissive. I regret not getting therapy sooner, not working on myself when there was still something to save. But I'm also not sure I could have done anything differently with the tools I had at the time. I was doing what I'd always been taught to do: be strong, be capable, be independent. I thought those were virtues. I didn't realize they could also be weapons you use to push people away. Maybe that's just an excuse. Maybe I'm still trying to manage the narrative, to make myself look better in the story of my own life. I don't know anymore. What I do know is that somewhere in the world my husband, my almost ex-husband, is living his life without me, and he's probably better for it. And I'm here in the house we bought together, surrounded by the life I built so carefully, finally understanding that you can't manage your way to happiness. You can't control your way to love. And you can't laugh at someone's pain without paying for it eventually. I paid for it. I'm still paying for it. And the worst part? The part that really makes me the villain of this story? I'm not sure I'd recognize real love if it showed up at my door. I'm not sure I'm capable of the kind of openness it requires. I might just be broken in a way that no amount of therapy or self-awareness can fix. Or maybe that's just another story I'm telling myself to avoid the scarier truth that I could change if I really wanted to. But change is terrifying and being right is comfortable, even when being right means being alone. I laughed when he said he felt unappreciated. He quit trying, and now I'm invisible to the person I miss most. That's the story. That's the confession. Make of it what you will.